Ladies and gentlemen, I decided that I wanted to make a video on why people actually stay stuck and what are the key aspects of what keep them in their shit. There are a number of core areas of what keeps someone in the position that they're in without progression. And the big thing I focus on is what makes people end up either stagnating or slipping. Right? I generally work with people who are stable and we want to get them winning. But one of the things that we need to be aware of is what actually keeps people in their position. So this video is all about why feedback loops are fundamental in making sure that you're always course correcting with your mental, your emotional, and your physical well-being. Right? Because when you don't have that course correction, it's kind of like you're a ship that's heading 1,000 kilometers into the distance and you've got your destination set, but you're up against the tide. You're up against the winds. You're up against a fucking huge boat. But within that, you need to be able to continuously course correct to make sure you get to your destination. Because if you are even 1 to 2 to 3 degrees off, you're going to end up far away from where you wanted to be. So to start, I wanted to talk about why high performers, in particular, guys that have made money, entrepreneurs, guys in career, whatever that is, why these individuals often end up becoming stagnant and plateauing. And it's a really interesting one. And I want to share a story with you about an entrepreneur who was in business and he started making heaps of money. Like he started doing really well. Like we're talking 100K a month, roughly speaking. As soon as he started doing that, he'd made it. Like he'd spent so long agonizing over getting to this point. And then he was like, I'm here now. And it's kind of like his motivation dipped. It's kind of like his incentive to keep going dipped because he all of a sudden had more overwhelm. And he realized that with the business that he was working on, he needed more help. He needed to ask for help. He needed to put in place specific systems and structures and procedures, which he had been doing. But the biggest thing that was stopping him from actually executing and creating consistency was his emotional regulation. His identity was not yet ready for this version of him that was going to make all this money. Your nervous system holds the capacity to what you can actually do in your potential, right? When your nervous system taps out and it gets too hard, you stop, right? You've got an energetic ceiling of where you actually live. That's what happened with this guy. He didn't understand what his energetic ceiling was, and so he had all these other beliefs and values which were pulling him back down to where his normal identity was. He was reaching that edge. So for someone like him, it's like, well, what do you do to make that not happen? What do you do to make sure that your emotional regulation is on point? What do you do to make sure that you're always course correcting? So the most important part about today is going to be looking at how we course correct consistently, easily, and effortlessly. So let's start with number one. Number one reason why we end up stagnating, why we end up plateauing, why we end up bailing out. And in my opinion, it comes back to a lack of awareness. A lack of awareness around repeating the same patterns, behaviors. Sometimes we realize when, we don't do the things that we should do. But when that becomes a consistent repeating behavior, and you're wondering why you're not doing it, wondering why you are avoiding taking action, there is a lack of awareness as to why. There is a lack of reason to that deeper motivation. One of the things I've noticed with working with a lot of high performing entrepreneurs that do make a lot of money, it ends up being like a shadow belief. And so what a shadow belief actually is, it's an unconscious belief that drives you. It's an unconscious fear often as well. And so the shadow belief was that he had a fear of failing. Because if he got any bigger, then he was going to fail more. If he got any bigger, then he would have the success he wanted. But if then he had the success he wanted, then he might lose the people around him. So he had this massive internal conflict around getting to where he wanted to go. Because, well, if you do get there, then all of a sudden you're really different from all the people around you. You're different from friends, you're different from family. Your circle is continuously shrinking as you become bigger. So he was lacking the certainty, he was lacking the control in his business, and all his unconscious emotional programming came up. And because most people don't have good self-awareness in general, they can intellectualize things, but because they don't have good self-awareness in general, basically they end up, the same patterns just end up repeating because they don't actually know what's going on beneath the surface. The next biggest thing comes back to lacking feedback loops. So what I mean by feedback loops is this. We have growth and we have time. And most people spend a lot of their life trading their time for their growth because normally, it takes years to get to where you want to go. And often that's true. The way that we circumvent this is by increasing the amount of feedback loops that we have. What is a feedback loop? A feedback loop is a reflection, an awareness, a revision of what went well, what didn't go well in order to make an adjustment. So right here, we've got time. Most people that we know will get to New Year's Eve and make a New Year's resolution, and they will do the thing, and when they fail, they stop, right? And their feedback loop is, oh, here, we didn't work. Ah, well, damn it. But then what will often happen moving forwards is they'll only have another few reflections per year. And so they don't actually end up growing that far because they're not creating the awareness they need to course correct. Whereas what happens when you work with a coach or you have consistent daily reflections, all of a sudden you're getting all these little awareness pieces around what's working, what's not working, and what you need to keep improving on to create change. Similar like in any elite sport, they are constantly making course corrections around what is necessary and what is not necessary. And so you can see here, the more feedback loops, the better the exponential growth is going to be. So these are the 4 best questions to ask yourself and journal on each day. Number 1 is, where did you show up? What can you honor and celebrate for yourself? What this question really means is like, where do you need to make sure, that was the new milestone of the day. When you hit that milestone, it means you've got traction. It means you've got consistency, right? The more feeling of consistency and traction you have, the better you're going to move through the day, the week, the month, and the year. Number 2, my favorite, what has triggered you? The things that trigger you, the things that piss you off, the things that make you angry, the things that make you feel guilt, the things that make you feel shame. These are all things that are trying to show you something that's going on beneath the surface of your mind, right? This is where we have new levels of awareness. When we investigate these triggers, that's when we become more whole. That's when we move past the shit that triggers us and therefore come back to far more balance and consistency, right? Number 3, where did you sell out? This question represents more so during the day, where did you sabotage? Where did you do the thing where you said that you shouldn't do? Where did you do the thing that you know that you shouldn't have, but you did anyway? Right? I have days where I'm like, I'm going to do this. And then I end up spending an extra hour or 2 on my phone doing something that I didn't need to do. And so that would be an example of where I sold out, right? I would sell out if I wanted to eat food that I said I shouldn't, right? These are all areas where I'm not being congruent with myself. Right? When I'm not congruent, I'm going against what I say. Number 4, what is unfelt emotionally? This question looks at, well, what is it that you did feel that you did not actually allow yourself to sit in? Was it anger? Was it sadness? Was it fear? Was it resentment? Resentment's really big in a lot of relationships. So all these emotions that keep coming up for you, these are all things that you need to reflect on to process to then move forwards from it. And number 5 is looking at planning tomorrow's game, right? What is the highest priority? When you have the highest priority thing that you know you need to do and you set it and you get it done, it's the biggest thing that you need to worry about. And you know you're going to move the ball. You know that shit is going to change, that things are going to move. The more that you focus on getting the priority fixed, the better you will achieve your things, right? Because we've all of a sudden got these consistent feedback loops, which are showing up in our life that we get to focus on and keep creating iterations and movement forwards. So to finish it off, there's one other main factor that keeps you in your position, and that's your environment. Regardless of where you are and what you're doing, if you could be around guys that are successful, but they're going out drinking and they're going out partying all the time, and you don't want that because your emotional mental well-being doesn't actually align, and therefore you're out of integrity with yourself and what you want. The environmental aspect, you're always going to be banging your head up against a brick wall because you can do a lot of mental emotional work, but if you're in a shit place with shit people, it's just going to be a lot harder, right? It's like walking up a massive hill with an extra 20 kilos on your back when you don't even need to be carrying it. So the better you can create your environment, the better you can align yourself with your environment, the more changes you're actually going to make, the better you set yourself up to succeed. The last question, which is a little bit more spicy, is your secondary gain. And this will be a whole video on its own, but effectively what secondary gain is, you get something by having your problem. You get something by having your problem. By not having enough money, you get a sense of security or safety. By continuously burning yourself out, you're stopping yourself from having success. There are these nuanced things that you get a level of your human needs met by maintaining your problems. You get certainty, you get uncertainty, you get significance, and you get love and connection. So I'd urge you to reflect on is, with whatever's going on for you now, whatever challenge, whatever problem, whatever it is that's coming up, what human need do you get met by having this problem continue? because the reason you don't move through it is because you would be losing that human need. And therefore that goes against part of your identity in the way that it is right now. So to cover all of today and what you just learned, we need to understand how to course correct consistently, effectively, and efficiently. And we do that by doing daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly reviews around where we're at, what we're doing, and what needs to happen. So all my guys that come and work with me, we do daily, we do weekly, we do monthly, we do quarterly reviews, because the more reflections they get, the bigger and better the ability is for change to actually occur. And by doing these daily reviews, you're creating more awareness around who you are, why you are the way you are, and therefore going deeper and processing those core emotions and unfelt feelings, which actually then create the self-sabotage and create the chaos and the problems for yourself. And the last part is understanding what that secondary gain is, uncovering what the hidden benefit you get by having your problem is. By understanding and integrating what that hidden benefit is, you're able to, again, make more effective and consistent change. And the last one being environment. Make your environment better, make it more effective, make it more efficient, because that's going to set you up for success in relationships, in business, in whatever the hell you want to do. Thanks for watching. Like the video, comment down below what would happen if you reflected on your actions every single day for 1 week. What would that bring up for you? What would that show for you? What would you have to face that you have been avoiding facing?